Star Trek Discovery sadly missed a perfect chance to follow in TNG and DS9's footsteps. Star Trek Discovery could have followed in the footsteps of two great episodes from Star Trek, The Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but it didn't. In its fifth and final season, Discovery sent Captain Michael Burnham Sonequa Martin Green on an adventure that spanned the Star Trek timeline. Discovery may have received mixed reviews from fans, but the show introduced some amazing new characters and ultimately revitalized the Star Trek franchise. Discovery's final season incorporated numerous elements and references to past Trek, but missed an opportunity to capitalize on a particular kind of story. Doug Jones's Saru became one of Star Trek Discovery's most beloved characters, as his story arc was one of its most compelling. Saru single-handedly changed the Kelpians' way of life, and his profound kindness affected everyone he met. Although Saru had never shown an inclination toward romantic attachments, this changed when he met Navar President Trina Tora Rosling. The two began what can best be described as a courtship in Discovery Season 4, and quickly became the show's most adorable couple. They married in Discovery's series finale, but the show could have dedicated an entire episode to their stunning ceremony. Star Trek Discovery Season 5 should have ended with an episode about Saru's wedding. Star Trek Discovery beautifully staged Saru and Trina's wedding, but missed an opportunity by not devoting an entire episode to the event. Discovery Season 5 followed an action-packed storyline that took Michael Burnham and her crew to some fascinating new places as they raced to stop a potentially devastating weapon from falling into the wrong hands. With such high stakes and fast-paced storytelling, an episode dedicated to Saru and Trina's wedding would have been a nice way to wind down the series. One of Star Trek Discovery's greatest strengths was always its characters. A wedding-centric episode would have allowed the show to focus more on the characters and their relationships as it brought their stories to a close. It would have been fun to see Saru, Trina, and their friends preparing for the wedding, as they were finally able to relax after saving the galaxy again. Star Trek Discovery's series finale had a lot of story threads to wrap up, unfortunately reducing Saru and Trina's wedding to a couple of scenes, but their relationship remains one of the show's highlights. Star Trek rarely does wedding episodes, but they're always great. While Star Trek has not done many wedding episodes, the ones it has done have been great. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4, Episode 11, Data's Day, may center on the experience of LT Commander Data Brent Spiner, but his day revolves around the wedding of Miles O'Brien Cole-Meany and Keiko Rosalind Chow. Data spends his day learning to dance from Dr. Beverly Crusher Gates McFadden and acting as a go-between between Miles and Keiko. Data's Day is an incredibly fun and sweet episode that perfectly celebrates the family that Captain Jean-Luc Picard Patrick Stewart and his crew have become. Star Trek Discovery unfortunately missed the opportunity to add another wedding episode to Star Trek's repertoire. Star Trek Deep Space Nine also did a wedding-centered episode in Season 6, Episode 7, You Are Cordially Invited. The story centers on LT Commanders Worf Michael Dorn and Yajia Dax Terry Farrell as they prepare for their wedding. Complete with a Klingon bachelor party and a temporary last-minute cancellation, You Are Cordially Invited celebrates one of Star Trek's best couples and offers the characters and the viewers a break from the ongoing Dominion War. Star Trek Discovery unfortunately missed the opportunity to add another wedding episode to Star Trek's repertoire, but gave Saru and Trina a lovely happy ending. When Star Trek Discovery first premiered, it carried with it the weight of expectation and the torch of a franchise that had boldly gone where no one had gone before for more than half a century. With a sleek visual style, a serialized narrative, and a willingness to shake up canon, Discovery promised something fresh. And yet, in its pursuit of reinvention, it bypassed a golden opportunity to evolve in the nuanced, character-rich, and socially reflective vein of its predecessors, The Next Generation TNG and Deep Space Nine DS9. It wasn't just about nostalgia. TNG and DS9 weren't beloved because they repeated the formula of the original series. They expanded it. They took the Roddenberry vision of exploration, diplomacy, and ethical quandaries and applied it to complex, layered storytelling. They respected their audience's intelligence. DS9 in particular dared to question Starfleet's idealism and presented a world where utopia was a work in progress, not a fait accompli. Discovery, by contrast, launched with action and spectacle front and center. Its early seasons were propelled by dramatic twists, secret identities, and galaxy-threatening stakes. There was a constant need to raise the narrative volume, to dazzle with plot, to overwhelm with emotion. While this created a show with visual flair and narrative energy, it came at the cost of quieter virtues, world-building, political allegory, and philosophical depth. TNG gave us The Measure of a Man, a courtroom drama about artificial intelligence and sentience. DS9 gave us In the Pale Moonlight, a moral meditation on the cost of victory. What is Discovery's counterpart? There was a window for Discovery to carve a similar path, especially after its jump into the 32nd century. This bold time leap should have been its moment to slow down and breathe. Here was a canvas unlike any other in Star Trek history, a Federation diminished, fractured by the burn, and struggling to find relevance. This was the perfect setup to explore themes TNG and DS9 thrived on: rebuilding from collapse, redefining ideals, confronting moral ambiguity, and navigating diplomacy with unfamiliar alien powers. But Discovery largely treated this new world as a backdrop for personal drama and fast-paced missions, rather than a landscape for political and philosophical exploration. Instead of introducing new civilizations or diving deeply into how this future Federation operated, the show leaned heavily on Michael Burnham's personal journey. While her character is compelling and Sonequa Martin Green delivers a powerhouse performance, the show became increasingly centered on her arc, sometimes at the expense of ensemble development. One of DS9's greatest strengths was its ability to give nearly every character a full arc, from Odo's identity struggles to Kira's evolution from freedom fighter to diplomat. TNG, likewise, built rich inner lives for Data, Worf, and Troy, all of whom grew with the audience. Discovery's bridge crew, by contrast, has often felt like background decoration. Fans know more about Lieutenant Commander Ariam from a single death-focused episode than they do about other officers who've been present since the pilot. Opportunities for episodic storytelling, miniature moral puzzles within the larger arc, were few and far between. The serialized format didn't have to be a limitation. DS9 proved that you could weave long-term plots with episodic brilliance. But Discovery seemed reluctant to allow for standalone tales that probe deeper questions. Even its antagonists, often a vital part of Star Trek's commentary, have veered into melodrama rather than ideological opposition. Where was the nuanced villain like Gul Dukat, who made us question everything? Or the philosophical tension of the Borg? Too often, Discovery's villains are obstacles to overcome, not provocations to understanding. This isn't to say Discovery hasn't had its moments. The depiction of trauma, the found family dynamic, and the inclusive casting are all worthy of praise. The emotional sincerity of the show is undeniable. But the heart of Star Trek isn't just emotion, it's exploration. Not just of the stars, but of ideas, beliefs, and civilizations. In the end, Discovery could have stood proudly beside TNG and DS9, not just as a visual evolution, but as a philosophical and narrative heir. It had the tools. It had the premise. It just didn't slow down long.